Thanks, Henry. It's always a pleasure to hear what you're doing in Scotland. You have been a great role model, actually, for many countries, including my country, Malta. So we have time for a few questions. Please wait for the microphone first before you start talking, then introduce yourself, and obviously make the question. And be concise, please, because we don't have time, and the coffee break is waiting for us. So, yeah.
Hello, Andrew Papadopoulos, clinical psychologist.
Yeah, could you please stand up so that other people can see you?
Andrew Papadopoulos, clinical psychologist. A message for Henry, really. Thank you very much for your presentation. I used to be part of psychology, deputy director for Birmingham Solihull Mental Health Trust, and one of the projects I was involved in was to develop a recovery framework for our trust. Now, what you're describing is effectively part of the recovery movement. And, you know, we have organisations like IMROC that provide guidelines and standards for organisations to become very much recovery orientated and recovery focused. And I'm wondering whether you've considered linking in with those sorts of developments within mental health, because you know, what we try to do was encompass both care of older people and people experiencing dementia in their families within a broader recovery orientated framework.
Yeah. Are we working? Can you hear me? Try again. I'm pushing the button. I'm getting shouted at. How's that? Is that one working? Yeah, good. Okay. So one of I think the positive things about the evolution of our strategy was that the recovery network were involved in it, and certainly, like, I think that, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I look at the recovery model and think, yeah, that's it. That's exactly the type of things that we should be thinking about. And when we were conceiving our thinking, we were drawing it in. There is some tension about the concept of recovery when we talk about that in terms of dementia, and I think that's a challenge, but the principles, I think, are very much aligned. And in fact, I think the recovery movement needs a bit of an injection in certainly some areas that where I see it in the mental health world, because for me it's exactly the way we should be practicing and developing. But we do have that connection, and we did and will maintain that. Yeah.
Any more questions, please? Yeah.
I can't resist a comment on what's just been said.
Yeah, just be concise because we're late. Okay.
My name is Peter Mittler. I'm a human rights advisor to Dementia Alliance International, and I've been talking about the UN Convention. My question to Henry will be, and it's a very simple one, the turning point for Scotland seems to have been 2007. That was 1 year after the UN Convention was launched. The UK ratified that convention in 2009. So it'd be very useful, I think, for the conference, because the convention has come up time and again, and it's the Alzheimer newsletters, Alzheimer Europe newsletters are full of it at the moment, to tell us how you came, what use you made of the convention. But my PS is to the last question, because Dementia Alliance is working with the World Health Organization, and their dementia is the responsibility of the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. And the concept of recovery is extremely important in that department. And at first, it seemed to us not to be appropriate for dementia, but what we're telling them is that recovery for us is recovery, what all the speakers have been talking about today and in the conference, which is recovery of the life we used to have. And I'm speaking as a person with dementia, so is Helen and many others. That's what we want to get back. We're not looking for a cure for dementia for ourselves. So that's just a PS, but I'd be grateful if Henry would answer that as my primary question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And I can only really talk to that from my own perspective, Peter. Yeah, and where we probably, I think, started to get so much stronger in understanding what we meant by a human rights-based approach was as we started to work in the Charter, and so Jim Pearson, who's here, led that work for us. But we probably started to really think about the human rights angle around the time where the sort of reports on the use of antipsychotic medication was coming out, and we started to sort of configure in our minds, actually, this is all about human rights. And at one point we were starting on platforms talking about the need to claim back the human rights agenda from the very sort of like negative, extreme press that was around it. And when we started to think about the Charter, it was really when we started to work with the Scottish Human Rights Commission. And we got Kavita Shetty and people like Alan Miller. And that's when our knowledge started to really increase. And I think the learning from my perspective at that point was, you know, everything we've been arguing for and everything we've been talking about is actually founded in rights. And we've had people like, you know, the expertise, people like Adrian Ward, who's here in Scotland for many years, so we've got a really strong understanding of that. But we never had wrapped it up in anything. And I think the Charter of Rights wrapped all that up, gave us a platform, made it mean something, and then it got put in the front of every policy from that perspective forward. And I think like Scotland as a whole should be very proud of that.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of this exciting session. I hope that it was informative as well as enjoyable. I would like to thank again the speakers for their participation. Now a break for coffee, but please join us again for the next session, which is due to start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which will focus on treatment and management of dementia. I would appreciate if you give some time for people with dementia to leave the hall first, please. And another thing, please don't forget to fill in. I know we have said this time and time over again. Don't forget to fill in the poster form and the conference form for us. Thank you very much.